So, bring my mobile up over here. With the old citations, I'm sure you all know, you have to be sure to run your people before you before you open the form. Otherwise, they don't show up to populate. That's no longer the case here, which is good. If you don't run them before, there'll be an option in the form itself to do a search. But on the bad side, you can no longer import directly from the state return directly into the form. It has to come from a local file. So essentially, you have to create a local file if one doesn't exist for the vehicle and the person. So when you go to your forms here and you choose the FR Citation UT, it's going to open it up here. And if you notice, you get this little box that pops up that says you're currently assigned a CAD call, import call details. So you can go ahead and click import, and that'll import your CAD call information from the call you're assigned to. If you miss that after you open it, you can still go back after the fact and go down to Actions and then Import CAD Call. So because that little pop-up box will go disappear after a few seconds. So I missed it, so I'm going to go down to Actions and Import CAD Call, and it's going to populate the information from the CAD call. One thing I would highly recommend that you advise all your officers is to go in from the get-go and create defaults. It's actually one of the coolest features of these forms is the ability to set up your defaults. And what that is you can go through on this form and fill out whatever you want to always populate every time you open a citation and save that as your default. And every time you open a citation, that's going to be populated. So for instance, what I like to do on mine, I have it set up, I go through on the commercial vehicles. I don't deal with commercial vehicles that often, so I set those all to no by default. And if by chance I deal with a commercial vehicle, I'll go through and change those appropriately. Another feature, as a police officer, I work for a sheriff's office, so this doesn't work very well for me, but for the city police officers, they can go through and pre-fill their justice court and have that automatically in there when they do it. You can pre-fill your city, so if I'm, let's say, Ogden Police Department, I can put that in there. You also probably want to pre-fill your ID number. Another thing you can pre-fill is you can pre-fill your radar information. So if your agency has car per man and you have your radar that's always the radar you use, you can pre-fill your radar information. Once you've set that up, all the stuff you want to have defaulted, you click down in Actions and Save as Default. When you do that, that will save. Oh, one other thing I always set is the county too, because it is a required field, so I always default that one too. Anyhow, so you go to Actions, Save as Default, and that every time you open a citation, all that information will automatically pre-fill. So moving on. So here I have not ran anybody, so I need to run somebody. So you click the search or F2. It'll take you to your mobile search screen. I'm going to run his driver's license. We do have a local file right here. However, for the sake of demonstration, we probably won't use it. But since there's a local file and I've opened it, he will now show up in the citation list. So now I can use him because he does have a local file. That's why he's populating there. But if he didn't, so we're going to pretend like he doesn't, you pull up his driver's license and click Import to Spillman. Anyways, once everything's in there, it should import everything over. Click Save. Trying to geo-validate the address. If you have Centric's GeoBase, it will geocode the addresses. If you have a Classic, it doesn't. Because, as we saw, Yogi Bear does have a local name file in our database, it's going to say, hey, you're attempting to add this name here that you've imported from your driver's license, but I think he may exist already, and here's your potential duplicate, and it highlights what it hit off of. It hit off name and date of birth, and also driver's license and driver's license state. And so either you can say, I don't care. They're not the same person. You can ignore and create a new record. Or you can merge them together, or you can alias this name to the existing name record. Now, when I say merge with this name, it's not what you think as far as like name merge. What this does is it will go through and we'll do this. So I'll click merge with this name. I say yes, the same person. Then it asks you anything that was different. It will ask you what value you want to use in the one you're trying to import or what's on the name file. So we'll use what the new one is. If there's anything else, it would be populated down here if there's any differences. It's really quick and easy, pretty straightforward. This is something, again, you're probably going to want to show your officers to, otherwise, you know how it is. They're going to click just make it new, and you're going to have a lot of duplicate name files. But it's a really simple process to go through once they understand how that process works. So now I have a name file, so now it'll populate. I'm not going to run a vehicle because there are no BCI test vehicle records, unfortunately, that I know of, unless somebody else knows of one. So I'm not going to run a vehicle. But once you have your options here, you can either just click and drag over, or if you notice, once the name's highlighted, the section that you're going to move them into, which is the names, is kind of highlighted in purple here and has a number there. You can just click that number that's on your keyboard, so 1, and that will move it all over. So if your officers prefer not to use their mouse, they can use their keyboard. And same thing, if they want to move the vehicles, they can click the vehicles, or they can just hit F3, and that will bring up the vehicles. Like, I don't have any vehicles in there. I could click search and find one. Actually, I wonder if we have a fake local record for a vehicle. Oh, we do. Perfect. It's Yogi's, too. Even better. So there is a local vehicle file for this. We'll use this. Now you see it's populated. I can click and drag it over. Populates it over. Anything that's required, you can see is kind of highlighted in this kind of, I guess, tan color. So your officers will need to go through and fill those out. And jurisdiction is State Road. Once you're done, you can validate it, which does not validate necessarily to the state. So it doesn't send it to the state for validation, but it validates based off what the state requires. So with this one, I filled out all those required fills, so it says it was successful. Matter of fact, if I go and maybe uncheck something that's required, let's do that again, do validate. It says, oh, there's a problem. Either accident yes or no, accident no yes or accident no must be checked, and it highlights the field in red that it's telling you there's an error. So you go, oh, okay, sorry, and then you're good. You can click validate again. You can say it's successful. Do you want to submit the form or return to the form? So the verbiage here says submit. It doesn't submit it. It saves it. In a previous version of the form, this button here that said save used to say submit, and we actually asked them to change that to save instead of submit because people were getting confused thinking submit, save to the state, but I guess they didn't change it here. So this will just save it. So I'm not going to save it because I don't want to create it in my database. But at that point, it works just like the old form. It'll create the workflow record, then you can send it off to the state. If you want to change the address, so the address, let's say the address that was imported from my call was 2186 Lincoln, but let's say that's not the address that I want to use. So that's where they were stopped, but the address, the violation occurred, let's say 2000 Lincoln. A lot of people are doing this. They're clicking in here and doing it here. Don't do that. You want to click down here. So right here it says violation location, and it has the address. You click edit. Put in the address, so I'm going to say 2000 Lincoln. And then now it changes that, and you just click update form, and that will change that. I've seen it where they go through and try to do it directly on the form, and then it causes a problem, so don't do it that way. If I need to edit the driver's address, very good question. So if you didn't do it when you created the local file, or if you're using an existing one and you go, hey, you know what? That's not his address. You can just double click on the name and it'll open up the name file, and then you can go and just change it there. Oops. So let's say we have him really living at voila. With the one thing with the statutes, so by default it's going to give you every statute that's in the SMOT table. So all of your state codes, the local, I mean every city ordinance. But the one thing that's different with this from the old citation is you cannot do categories anymore. So like some agencies would have it set up where you click in there and it would say you can do state, local, and then the type of the driver's license violations, alcohol-related violations. You can't do that anymore. But what they've done here, which kind of makes up for that, is you can search. It's more of a smart search, so you can just start typing. So you can do like no driver's license, and just start typing. It will narrow down your list to whatever contains the search criteria you've entered. Also, the enhancements should work on this new one. Really, the only enhancement the state is accepting right now is domestic violence enhancement. So that does work.
That instead of searching for a name, it will let you add a name that's offline?
It's an out-of-state license, let's just say. Obviously, if it's out-of-state license, that's another thing I want to show you really quick. If you have an out-of-state license, obviously you can't import the license into Spillman, right? It doesn't parse it out correctly, and so you'd have to by hand go and do that. One thing with that we found, so when you run somebody, so let's run Yogi Bear again, or let's do not Yogi Bear, something that I know doesn't exist in our database. You get no, and you notice it had that create new link, and the first complaint was, well, crap, they don't exist, they don't have a driver's license, I want to go back and create the name file, how do I do it? If you just click the back button, it takes you right back there, you can do create new. And so that will open up the names thing that you can go and fill out, and it'll populate what you searched. So if you searched everything, it'll populate whatever information you searched. So you can do that, hand enter in all the information from the out-of-state license to do it. Like I say, with any type of change, this is, at first it's probably going to be a little bit frustrating for the officers. But like I say, if you get your translation set up correctly, it's really just a two-click process. It's pretty painless. And also, once you get your your rhythm down, it's pretty simple. My first couple of citations were a little more painful. It took a little extra time, but once I kind of got into my groove and figured out the flow, how it worked, got my default set up, so I wasn't having to do all this stuff over and over again every time. It made it pretty quick and easy. I know, a lot of the stuff I've heard, especially initially from people, is we don't like having to create those name files first, which, that's, I can't argue against that. But like I said, once you get down into your groove, it becomes a pretty painless process. I think I went through that same thing on the new on the old citation when we first got that. The first while it was painful. It's like I just want to handwrite them. It was easier to handwrite them, and now I look back and think, no way. There is so when you click save, it will save it to the database. It doesn't close the box. It just saves it, and then you can close it. You got the print, which prints the entire citation, and the defendant copy only.